Welcome to Pitch It To Me Podcast, a show about the subjective past, present, and potential future of flesh and blood design. Grab ye eye patches and peg legs, because we're sailing to New Zealand for treasures untold. In today's episode, we'll be working together to design the Swashbuckler, a Pitch It To Me Podcast Original Custom Class. On red pitch, Captain Hornswoggle will serve the swagger. On yellow pitch, Fuzzy will bring the booty. And on blue pitch, Joel will provide the pirate energy. You can find us across all socials such as TikTok and Instagram at Pitch It To Me Podcast.
I'm Joel.
I'm Fuzzy.
And I'm Captain Hornswoggle.
Yeah, we have a special guest with us today. Unfortunately, our second favorite host, Clark, couldn't make it today, so we have Captain Hornswoggle who's filling in for him.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be talking about my favorite collectible trading card game, Flesh and Blood.
And Joel couldn't be with us in person, but thanks to the wonders of modern technology, he still gets to podcast with us. Right, Joel?
Whee! I'm somewhere other than the garage. If you can guess where I'm at, I'll give you a singular handshake.
Nice. Joel handshakes are pretty clutch.
Ye may have to wait for a big event, but ye'll get it.
Since, life situations change, we've been enjoying recording in person for the longest time, but there's a world where maybe, we have to do distance recording sometimes, so this is also kind of a test run for our potential future of our podcast and the way that we design it.
Yes.
But if we do, hopefully I'll be able to get some better equipment and maybe one of those little, those cages where people do voice acting in.
Oh, yeah, voice acting cage. I've never heard of those, but they sound scary.
Well, it's less of a cage. I just didn't know what to call it. A box, maybe? I don't know. You know what I'm talking about.
So, Captain Hornswoggle, I heard you had a little life event recently.
Yeah. Though I've been out to sea for many a year, it's been a while since I've seen a true musical performance. Just this last Friday, I went with me brother to a concert, Closure in Moscow at the Regent in Los Angeles. It was a good time. We got very drunk together. I bought some shirts. I even bought a vinyl player, but I don't have a way of playing the vinyl tape.
You bought a vinyl record?
Yes, I bought a vinyl record. But I have no way of playing it. I was too drunk, and I just saw the thing on the table and said, "Give me one of those."
And then how many doubloons did that set you back?
35.
35 doubloons.
It was not nothing.
Also, Captain Hornswoggle, I'm going to be doing a rock climbing gym later today.
Truly?
Truly, yeah.
Dead ass?
This is definitely one of those situations where, dead ass.
That's great. We're going to need people like you in the crew when we scale the cliffs to take the fort.
What's the name of the gym? Can I tag along?
Yeah, it's called The Post in Pasadena.
Oh, hell yeah. I love rock climbing. I actually used to be a rock climbing instructor, literally, at this Boy Scout summer camp that Clark and I and Han all met at. I was even, the director of their rock climbing program for a couple years.
What? I find it so hard to imagine you scaling a rock wall. That's so crazy.
Well, you're about to get schooled later today at The Post. So this episode's going to be a little bit special since it's our custom class episode. We've done this before, but the structure of our show changes a little bit when we do things like this. So each of us is going to come up with a major theme for the Swashbuckler class. Each of these ideas is going to be one potential power or strength that the class might have. And then after we all present our ideas, then we're going to bring it all together in what we're calling our inventory, where we're going to have new designs that were made after we record most of the podcast. And then we're going to bring it all together in a big Swashbuckler surprise.
Yes, Captain Hornswoggle approves.
So we're going to start off with our red pitch. Captain Hornswoggle, I believe you have this one. It looks here like you've designed something around swagger.
Yee, if you want to make a swashbuckler, they got to have swagger. Hold on, I need to take a drink of water. Much better. Okay, so
Wow, it's like night and day.
I can't keep that up for the whole hour and a half. Please don't make me.
Captain Hornswoggle, you sound like a lot like our friend Clark.
Purely coincidence, I swear to God. When I was thinking about like swagger and the Swashbuckler class, I brought up a bunch of the keywords I wanted to look for. Daring, bold, risk-taking, improvisation was a big one that I wanted to see a lot of. I've interpreted this as instant speed effects on a combat-oriented class.
Okay.
So we haven't really seen instant speed be a big part of a combat class identity, right? Wizards have a little bit of it. Lightning has a very, very small amount of it. But I felt like this was a good opportunity to bring it more to the forefront.
And this is effects kind of like Spellbound Creepers, right?
Yes.
Where you're suddenly able to play non-attacks in the middle of the combat chain, get free action points out of it.
Yes. So very much Spellbound Creepers was one of the first plays that I fell in love with. Like throwing a Swarming Gloomveil and then instant speeding in a Revel in Runeblood on top of it, and then having it hit was just like the most godlike feeling I ever had when I first started playing the game. And so I kind of want this class to be able to give something similar to that feeling. I'm also expecting a lot of synergies around drawing cards, so you'll notice that just drawing cards is pretty consistent throughout a lot of these. And I do want to note that while we talked about the Spellbound Creepers and non-attack actions being cast at instant speed, I'm also just thinking straight up instants are good. They're non-blocks, which means that you kind of have to play or pitch them. And I think it adds a little bit more pressure to the deck building. Also, even though we mentioned the Spellbound Creepers and casting non-attack action cards at instant speed, I also just wanted to note that straight up instants I think are really good here because you're putting null blocks, you're kind of forcing yourself to pitch or play them. And I think it adds a little bit more tension in the deck building in an interesting way.
Sure.
I really think more classes need to not just have a bunch of 3 blocks all over the place, but also by putting some straight up instants and non-blocks in the deck, I can kind of buff the block values a little bit somewhere else.
Totally agree.
So the first card is like the basic common that I wanted to express this idea through. It's called Witty Retort. It's a Swashbuckler non-attack action card, 0 cost, comes in rainbow, and is a common. Choose one of the following. Draw a card, target attack gains +3, or target attack gets -3. And it has Go Again. This is a 3 block. And if a hero has taken damage this turn, you may play this card at instant speed. So that is the main condition that I sort of landed on as to why instant speed effects can happen. I felt it was important because, one, there needs to be a condition and able to gain this nice ability, right? With Spellbound Creepers, you probably only activate it twice, maybe 3 times in a game if you're really lucky. You have to spend an extra resource into it, and it's a legendary piece of equipment that sits on the field. In this case, I'm kind of asking you to put a whole card on the combat chain that the opposing player can then interact with and block. And like, if they full block out your attack, all right, like you're not getting to cast it at instant speed. You don't get to do the cool, awesome thing, right? Also looking at this card, the +3 and the -3 effect can only happen at instant speed. So if you want to use this in the instant speed defensive or instant speed offensive way, you actually need to dedicate yourself to putting at least 2 attacks on the combat chain. Now, it is just any attack, so I'm also expecting this to work with the weapon.
This card would be really strong in blue in draft because it's like a blue block 3. And if you have too many blues in your hand, you can just play it to draw a card and then hopefully draw into a red and have a more smooth turn.
Yeah, it's always going to have that ability at any color to just cycle itself and to be an instant speed cantrip that can net you an action point. It's pretty strong. If you compare it to like Blink, it's like way more powerful than Blink.
Oh, 100%. It's like a direct upgrade. And, you know, trading a blue for a red, especially if you're like, depending on your curve of the rest of the hero's card pool, it could be a really, really strong effect too, even at blue.
I like it as a draft chaff common for sure.
Yeah. I also have some flavor text. All the flavor text for my cards are quotes from famous novels, movies, or anything. So this one is Reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated. It's the witty retort. The next card I designed is Get Used to Disappointment. This is another non-attack action card, but I think this one could also be an instant because it's actually not playable as just a non-attack action card. So this is a 0-cost yellow pitch majestic. Return target attack action card from the combat chain to your hand. If a hero has taken damage this turn, you can cast it at instant speed. So
do you want to change it to an instant?
I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, I think obviously it has no legal target if you cast it as a non-attack action card because the combat chain will close when you go to play it.
Right.
But I think I kind of want it to have the block value.
So I kind of like it because it's kind of funny because if you, like, say, for instance, you're getting crushed one game and you can never play it, it's kind of like you're getting used to disappointment in this card as well because you're not able to play it and use its effect. So it's like this weird, like, double-edged sword. Like, you get the block value, so it's slightly better than an instant, and you can either cash it in for, you know, a really wide combat chain, like if your opponent didn't throw anything at you or if you have tempo or something.
Yeah, or if they felt like they really needed to block a card and you were able to instant speed cast this on top, get that card back, put it back on the combat chain.
Yep.
Like maybe a snatch.
Oh my god, double snatches.
Yeah, snatch, and then they block it, and they're like, whew, don't need to deal with that card. And then you're just like, nah, get used to disappointment, buddy. Here it is again.
I like this effect a lot, and I can see it being something the Swashbuckler has access to that other classes wouldn't.
Yeah. I also really like it defensively. A lot of these cards, I tried to find an offensive and defensive option for it. So for this, it lets you block, and then if you let yourself take damage, you can still instant speed cast this and take one of your blocking cards and put it back in your hand.
Oh, okay.
Because it's any attack action card
that you own.
Oh.
Yes.
That's really cool, actually.
Yeah. So the whole idea here is I want the Swashbuckler to be able to feel like they can block. Like, one of the big issues with Runeblade and with Ninja is, like, a lot of the times they just feel like they can never block. So there's never actually any interesting back and forth in their combat. It's just, what's my max damage? I'm going to do that.
Sure.
This class, I'm trying to say, no, block. And then you have these really clever little things that you can do to get double value out of a card.
Or, like, if you get Pulse Wave harpooned, you can, like, save your card from Pulse Wave.
Yeah, you have to take damage first.
Yeah.
So you have to wait for the attack to, like, hit, but then you can, like, take it back. Yeah.
Yeah, because, like, after damage is dealt, you can still play it as an instant. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Definitely going for that vibe. And the flavor for text for this one is, who are you? I must know. I've done a lot of references to the duel between the Dread Pirate Roberts and Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride. I really love that scene, and so I've referenced it a lot. The next card I've designed is There Is Something You Don't Know. Now, this one is our first official or Swashbuckler instant. So I originally designed this very, very fair, and then I've pushed it. So I'm totally waiting on you guys to say, whoa, Clark, or sorry, whoa, Captain Hornswoggle, rein it in there, buddy. So this is a 0-cost, yellow pitch, majestic. It is a hero specialization. I want this only locked into one hero. And you may only play this card if a hero has taken damage this turn. Search your inventory for a non-equipment card, reveal it, put it into your hand.
So it's like a tutor effect from the sideboard?
Yep, and only the sideboard.
And only if you're taking damage?
Yeah.
I kind of like that. It reminds me of, like, Karn, the Great Curator from Magic the Gathering. So you have, like, kind of a wish board. They haven't really experimented with that other than, like, Concealed Blade.
Yeah.
And now with, Olympia's, like, Visit the Golden Anvil. Mm-hmm. So I actually really like this. And the fact that it's a it has to be a non-equipment card.
Yeah, otherwise you can't pitch it, play it. Like, I was trying to be, like, only a legal card you can put in your deck, and I think just non-equipment card fits the bill. I guess if this hero ever got a, like, demi-hero card, that could be a problem. But for now, I think this is fine. It fits all the markers. And, okay, this hero never gets a demi-hero. Boo-hoo.
You could change it to action or instant. That's basically all cards.
Well, I kind of want it to get the ability to get a reaction card.
A reaction card. Okay.
So the ability for it to like go get a razor reflex to like just randomly throw on top of an attack with a free resource, like out of nowhere. The ability for it to get like the sink below that you need to deal with an attack or dominated something. But at the exact same time, I think this tutor is really interesting when compared to other tutors because it literally is just a 1-to-1 version of the card, right?
Right.
And it's not like you're doubling up on a card because a lot of the times that's sort of what the tutors end up doing. It like acts as another copy of a really important card in your deck. This is different. It acts as a inventory card that you put in your deck. But if you think about it, why wouldn't you just sideboard that card in for your matchup anyway?
Because you get extra copies.
Like,
if there's, like, say there's a card like Command and Conquer where if like I need to cast this card to win. This is a bad example, but let me roll with it. Yeah. I can put 2 Command and Conquers in my main deck, a single copy in my sideboard, and I can put 3 copies of There's Something You Don't Know, this tutor, in my main deck, which means I essentially have 5 cards that are acting as Command and Conquer in my main deck. It's just only the first tutor will be able to grab CNC. But if there's a card I really just want to draw as soon as possible and one of them is fine, this is good for that. And I will still have 2 other Command and Conquers in my deck after the tutor anyway. So.
And you still want to make sure that you have other things that would be good to pull with your other 2 copies. Yeah. Because it's an instant. Can't block, can't attack. Like, it's only good for doing this one thing.
It allows you to fake having 5 copies of a card in your deck. That's what the wish boards are for.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about this? Because this was one of the ones I cooked up at like 1 a.m. at night, and I was feeling real good about.
I think this could be fun if it only grabbed reactions. I think that would be balanced and still like engaging and fun to play with, you know?
I think even if it just said like Swashbuckler card, that would style it pretty well. Overall, I don't think the effect is like too crazy because there's a lot of ways you can hedge against like how broken it can be. There are other cards that have the same power level of like being able to grab anything, like Codex of Frailty kind of seems the same way.
Yeah, I was going to say, Joel, you mentioned something great about a lot of the original classes in that all of them had a tutor when they were first printed. And Assassin kind of doesn't have one, but Codex kind of is like the Assassin tutor.
For
Definitely. Sure. It's like, because the Assassin is all about the right tool for the right job, and Codex of Frailty letting you choose whatever you want is kind of that same thing. I mean, I think it's much stronger than the tutors that the first 8 heroes got, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I think,
it's got a lot more going for it.
Yeah, for sure. But, you know, card selection like this, it doesn't seem that crazy to me, especially if you just say, like, only Swashbuckler or only, like, instant or non-attack or whatever.
Originally, this was a red legendary. So, like, the fact that I was able to pull it to yellow and pull it to majestic, and we're still feeling good about it in this initial conversation, that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Jumping into my last 2 designs, which do go completely together. First, I think I'm going to lead off with the equipment card, and then I'll talk about the card that I want to pair with it. This equipment is called Lifesaver. It is a Swashbuckler offhand equipment. I got really inspired to make this card when I was listening to the live stream episode, and I think it was one of the hosts, the second most handsome host.
Oh, okay.
He was talking about how the buckler in Swashbuckler literally came from the shield equipment buckler, right? And in Flesh and Blood, we have Bloody Deauville and Rotten Old Buckler. So why not give the buckler equipment to the Swashbuckler class? It makes a lot of sense.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a 1-block blade break equipment that says, when this defends, it gains, when this chain link resolves, if the total attack value is equal to the total block value, draw a card.
So it draws you a free card while blocking for 1 as long as the attack is perfectly blocked. It can't be under or over blocked.
Exactly. So if the attack is coming in for 7, you have to block for exactly 7. And then you get to draw a card as a result of it. But Blade Break means you lose it, so you only get to do this once. Unless the other card comes into play. Perfect Timing is a Swashbuckler instant that is a blue 0-cost rare. Give target offhand equipment +1 block and it loses blade break until end of turn. There is no such thing as fair in a fight to the death.
Amen.
So if you think about it, this is very on rate for a defense reaction, right? It essentially gives +1 value. It's only really playable if you kept your offhand this entire time, and it makes it a 2-block. So like it's like an evasive leap that also gives you +1 block. So it's like a blue sink below, I guess.
Yeah, this is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you combo it with the lifesaver, you get to draw a card when you do that. But if you really think about it, that's only replacing the card that you spent to put the free block on there.
Sure.
So you only really get incredible value off of lifesaver if they like close the chain and then attack again while it doesn't have blade break.
Okay.
Because it loses blade break until end of turn. So you have to either put it on the chain twice without spending a card, or properly block and lose it to get that free card, turning that equipment slot into a free card, which we've seen be very powerful with cards like Stride of Reprisal and Transcend the Universe.
Yeah, there's some weird shenanigans where this can have like really crazy explosive value, but it's also really dependent on Lifesaver getting the perfect block, because it's not that hard for someone to throw in an attack reaction and deny you the card advantage.
Yeah. And also, if you think about getting that extra thing, even still, we're not doing the ninja thing with this class. You have to block it perfectly.
Yeah.
The only time this is an equipment for a free card in hand only is when they throw a 0 for 1 at blue. How many classes are really doing that right now? There's like blue T-Bone and Mech. Maybe Bolton, if Bolton is like throwing his 0 for 1 blues.
Or like Crouching Tigers too. Sometimes they're 1 power.
Maybe some Crouching Tigers, yeah.
Imagine getting blown out because the Zen like plays Drop in the Sea on his own Crouching Tiger.
Right?
Like,
There's some really clever stuff that I think can happen here that can make this a really interesting little combo of cards.
I like this design a lot, Captain Hornswoggle.
Thank you.
No, I think this card is cool. I think Swashbuckler, especially with the designs that you showed us so far, Captain Hornswoggle, is that it's all about finesse. Because also it's like a buckler. It's really small, right? Like you got to be really precise to use it to defend anything. So the fact that you're going to be getting the most value off of defending small attacks seems really flavorful. So I actually really like it.
Thank you guys so much. As a final note for me, this class is just a playground. I have so much I want to do with this, and I'd love to develop these ideas further and further. There's a whole mechanic I designed that we didn't even get to talk about in today's episode, where I was really trying to push the risk-taking and like the gambling that I feel like Swashbucklers and Pirates really have, but there wasn't really time for it. And so many of these designs are contextual, right? Like so much of what this is like gaining the extra action point by playing the non-attack action cards at instant speed. But I didn't design a payoff for that. I kind of want to see where I can go with this, and sort of if we can find any answers in your guys' designs as to, well, what sort of attacks would you want to return back into your hand, and what are you doing with these extra action points? I think it's I would love to design more for this. Like honestly, I'd love to turn this into like a full class and like email it to LSS, like please hire me, here's my resume.
Yeah, for sure. I think you should definitely keep honing this down in case, LSS was like, hey, let's take ideas from the community like they did with the celebrational event,
And we'll see what happens at the end of the episode where we do our inventory space, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to come up with some more ideas with it.
Yeah, and try to synergize everything.
Anything else, Captain Hornswoggle?
Nope, I think that's all I got. Why don't we move over to Buzzy?
So for Yellow Pitch today, when I think about swashbucklers, I think they are all about dat booty, whether it's a collection of lovers they've amassed along their travels or a bunch of money like gold, silver, diamonds and gems that have been built up over time and buried in the ground. Because that's what you do when you're a swashbuckler, right? You get a bunch of stuff, you amass it together, and you bury it. And,
so true, bestie.
And this fantasy of building up money and wealth and booty is what I wanted to explore in my designs. I'm strictly going to be sticking to the money stuff. I don't have any designs where you collect lovers. Maybe that'll be another episode. I want to introduce a new token because my theme is heavily playing on the gold, silver, and copper tokens that already exist in the game. I imagine my Swashbuckler making those exact tokens, but I wanted to introduce another one called a ruby. The ruby follows the pattern of copper taking 4 resources to draw a card, silver takes 3 to draw a card, gold takes 2 resources to draw a card, the ruby would take 1. So it would be that much better. You can just pay a single resource, draw a new card. I also like how when I'm playing with these money tokens, it occurred to me that like in a limited environment, it's really easy to make other classes play nicely in an environment where we can all potentially care about gold, silver, copper tokens. Maybe like a merchant can come up in limited where there's like money tokens around either in the generic card pool or maybe like hybrid class cards. I think it would be like not too much of a stretch to see that happen. The first card I want to talk about, I'm calling Raise the Stakes. I'm introducing a new keyword here called raise. Think like poker chips, you raise the ante. As an additional cost to play this card, you may sacrifice a ruby or sacrifice a gold, silver, and copper token that you control. If you raise to this attack, it gets +6 power. It costs 2, and at base swings for 5, or 4, or 3, depending on color, and will block for 3. So if you're not raising the attack, this is a 2 for 5 that blocks for 3. It's under rate, but if you can sacrifice the treasure that you've been amassing or a single precious ruby, you can get +6 on your attack, making it a 2 for 11.
Jesus!
God damn!
I liked this idea of an ebb and flow where you're either collecting, like making sure most of your tempo is going into making these treasure tokens, or you're cashing in and you're doing some unstoppable attack that your opponent can't really hope to defend.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I'm getting super flashy here. I mean, a 2 for 11 is kind of exciting, but you could also make this a 2 for 9 that's a blue that you'd probably play pretty comfortably. I recognize that asking the player to collect 3 different tokens is a pretty tall order. Like imagine like Kasai like already has a lot of her design space in Blitz that's like playing blood on her hands. That's just 6 coppers, right?
Yeah.
You're focusing on one token and creating a bunch of copies of it. Even then, that's like enough of a gameplay that's interesting and people gravitate towards it, right? I'm not trying to make something that is so complicated and far-fetched that you have to play a bunch of different types of cards in order to make your gold, your copper, and your silver, that you like have a lot of different boxes you want to check. You know, I'm trying to simplify that with some of my next designs. This one's called Place Your Bets. It's a Swashbuckler non-attack action that costs 3 resources. I'm imagining it a rare that comes in all 3 colors. If a red card was pitched to play this, create a gold token. If a yellow card was pitched to play this, create a silver token. And no matter what, create 3 or 2 or 1 copper tokens based on the color of the card. So a red would make 3 copper, and if you pitched a red and a yellow to fund those 3 resources, then it'll make a complete set of gold, silver, and copper. Remember that ruby in my last design was kind of a stand-in for a complete set. So this card by itself, if you pitch a red and a yellow, can make your gold, silver, and copper. You could be ready to raise on your next turn. Or you might just pitch a blue to play this and create some copper tokens. You could also like overpitch, like pitch like a red and a blue, and then make your gold and copper and then still have a resource left over. You wouldn't be wasting any resources from the blue, really.
Yeah.
There's a lot of flexibility here depending on what you need. And if you want to pitch your lower rate pitch cards, like red and yellows, you're going to get rewarded for the money tokens you need. And those red and yellows will go to the bottom of your deck. You can use this to start pitch stacking and setting up your perfect turn. I'm imagining this Swashbuckler playing the long con. He's got plans.
When I read this card, I feel like it's a little underpowered, but I see why you made the decisions that you did. Like, if I think of High Striker as the like copper generator, that is a 0 cost to give plus the 6 coppers on an on hit. This is 3 resources for 3 coppers. That really isn't a lot. And I think that you could even do something like give it go again as just a small way of helping this card.
Sure.
I disagree, because if you look at starting stake, they let you create a gold if you don't have any. That's already a hoop you have to jump through. You can't have any gold prior, so you can't like stack gold with this card, and it doesn't have go again. So I think that is a good reference to how powerful this card should be or can be. Also with High Striker, like there's only 2 classes that care about copper, and that's like warrior and merchant.
Mm-hmm.
And warrior already has a tough time of like trying to get, on hits, and the fact that it's a 2-block makes a lot of warrior players not want to run it. And the fact that it doesn't give them any buffs as well is also like it doesn't fit the playstyle as well. Whereas this, it costs resources. So like even if you do one card, it's 3 copper, but it's hard to interact with. That's why I think it's very strong. So like you can just stack copper 3 times in a game, and you're already getting a lot more value than you would with High Striker or Starting Stake. And if you add a red or yellow into the mix, you're like, I think this card's super gas, actually.
I think I'm aiming for a high floor, low ceiling environment. You're right, Clark, that this isn't a crazy powerful explosive turn, but the uninteractability that Joel mentioned was something that I was kind of going for. It also blocks for 3, High Striker's blocking for 2 because you really want to be playing the High Striker. This card is ready for you if you want to block with it or if you want to pitch it. I'm probably imagining the blue of this card being better than the red or yellow versions.
Yeah.
You're probably just making like your 1 token copper that you need in order to make the complete set. My next card is a way to create the new Ruby tokens that I've been teasing. This is a flip card. I was a little inspired by the new Chi cards that have been printed in Part the Mistveil. Like cards that flip to another side and then go to the bottom of your deck to be seen later. I think is design space that we might see more of in the future. It was really cool how they designed specific resource gems. This one is an action card that turns into a better action card and gets put on the bottom of your deck. So I'm calling it Berry Treasure / Buried Treasure, present tense, past tense. The first time you play this as Berry Treasure, it costs 4 resources. It is a yellow pitch, so it pitches for 2, and it creates a ruby with Go Again, and then transforms and goes to the bottom of your deck. So you can pay 4 resources to get that ruby. It doesn't even cost an action point, but that ruby, remember, is worth about 6 power when you're able to cash it in order to raise an attack. Or maybe you can just get card advantage later on. Imagine playing this turn 0 and setting yourself up with a ruby. That can be a really crazy opener. When it goes to the bottom of your deck, it turns into Buried Treasure. It costs 0 to create a ruby with Go Again. So no longer costing any resources. Because it's a split card, I really wanted the effects to be really similar, so that way it's really easy to keep track of what this card is doing, Split cards are already complicated by design. I didn't want this design to get very bloated, so I made sure that it does almost the exact same thing on the front and back sides in order to keep things simple and easy to remember.
Yeah, it creates a ruby no matter what. The difference is the cost.
It's going to also block 3 no matter what. It can block 3 on the front face or the back face, and it'll pitch for yellow on either side.
I fucking love this card. I think transforming in general is really cool to me. I like that you play it once. It's kind of hard because it costs 4, and then you get the extra benefit of going back to find that treasure that you buried and get more value out of the cards that you previously mentioned, like Raise the Stakes. So those 2 for 11s are a lot easier to come by.
Look, as a pirate captain myself, I can tell you that burying treasure is a difficult thing to do. Like, you have to convince your crew to really give up a lot of time and energy for like no real immediate return. Like, it takes a lot of leadership. And then like finding it can be even harder. Like remembering it, the clues, if you're giving different pieces of information to different people, but like obviously a bunch of people know where it is. Like it is not an easy thing to have happen, and it can take a while to really get that payoff. I think what you've done here is an incredible bit of flavor of like,
thank you, Captain Hornswoggle.
Of course. But once you get that treasure, like immediate payoff, like there it is and it's ready to be used. I think that's great. And once you play it, then it goes to graveyard, which I think fits well.
Sweet. I'm glad you guys like this design. My last one is going to be a piece of equipment. This one I call known connections, because you got to know the right people, right? And it's a headpiece, so it's got to have some reference to the head in a way. It's the connections you know. I'm pointing to my temple as I describe this card. It has Blade Break 1, and it has a once per turn action that does not consume the headpiece, but instead you may destroy an item you control. If you have destroyed a copper this way, create a silver. If you destroyed a silver this way, create a gold token. And if you've destroyed a gold token this way, create a ruby token. So again, like, juggling all these different pieces of money tokens, I think can make the design more complicated than it has to be. So having something in the equipment slot that allows me to manage it and get me the ones I want relatively easily is something that I wanted in my design. And I also really wanted a headpiece that would be more attractive than Crown of Dominion. Because if I'm making a design around copper, silver, gold tokens, Crown of Dominion is a easy headpiece to look to. Like, do I just want to start with a gold? So I wanted to design a replacement because I don't want royal swashbucklers running around. Can you imagine the chaos?
I mean, sure. But as somebody who has sailed the seven seas,
Yes.
we do have pirate kings. I mean,
Oh, that's true.
They do show up. We do rally behind them. I mean, there is a good amount of organization amongst the pirate community.
That's true.
Naturally.
But I think I wanted like this headpiece to replace one. I just have a hard time seeing a pirate wearing a Crown of Dominion, so I wanted to make a new one. And I wanted to emphasize that pirates know a lot of people. They know where the best fencers are, right? They know how to find that treasure. I also want to pay a little bit of attention here to the last line that says, if you destroyed a gold token this way, create a ruby token. I think that might be the strongest use of this card because I've designed the rubies to be worth twice as much as a gold. Like turning one gold that's kind of worth like 3 points roughly into a ruby that I'm kind of counting as worth 6 points. I think that's a huge tick, and I might remove that line of text after I'm playing with it, so you can only turn coppers to silvers or silvers to golds.
Sure. I also like how, in comparison to the cards that I designed, where a lot of them were majestic or legendary, I put a couple drafty cards in there, but I don't think you designed a single majestic here. I'm looking at everything, and they all seem to be rare or common.
Well, I can only design so many cards. I could maybe see I don't know. I wanted to have that role player stuff. I was kind of imagining some flashier stuff from you guys. Maybe we can come up with some more majestics that play with money in the in the inventory.
Yeah, or maybe Joel has them for his pitch.
I definitely think that my designs are lacking attacks. I had a similar pattern to you, Captain Hornswoggle. I'm imagining like a lot of on hits that make treasure tokens when you hit, right? Like on hit make a silver, on hit make a gold or whatever. And I wanted to have this more reliable floor that you can lean back on, but there's definitely other cards that you want to have are probably a little bit more risky that you'd be able to collect the tokens for.
I mean, one thing that I do love about the money tokens coming in, I didn't explore it in my slice, but just the fact that like wager is obviously so good here. Wage gold.
Oh yeah.
And money where your mouth is are such obviously good. Like money where your mouth is on top of a raise the stakes that you do raise. Like that's a 3-card 3 for 14.
I love the idea of wagering a copper because your opponent's like, I don't even really want a copper. What am I going to do with a copper token?
Yeah.
So the wager is like, I give you a copper or I get a copper.
I totally think wager should make a comeback, especially building around the money tokens. One, because that helps distinguish it from the other wagers, which were all about the vigors, mights, and agilities. So yes, it's still wager, but very clearly wagering for swashbucklers or whatever this set might be is very distinct from the wager that we saw in heavy hitters, which, while is the same mechanic, is giving you a different payoff with these aura tokens that pop at the start of your turn.
Those are all the designs I have. It's not as much as my good friend Captain Hornswoggle, but I think that's okay because we got a lot of other stuff we want to get through. Let's hand things over to Joel. Joel, I think you were really emphasizing like the pirate culture of a swashbuckler.
Yeah, so I think our host Clark, who, like I said, not here, but he was saying that, maybe not all swashbucklers are pirates, but pirates are all swashbucklers in a sense. I knew that my host and my guest would mostly focus on swashbucklers, so I wanted to focus more on the pirate aspect of swashbucklers. So to start off, a pirate uses a lot of like makeshift grenades, which I'm not featuring today, but that is something that I wanted to keep in mind for future designs.
That sounds dangerous.
I recall you mentioning that in the in that live stream episode.
They also use like a lot of cutlasses, so like really thick swords that are very multi-purpose, like for both survival and combat. And then flintlocks, which I also did not feature today so far, but they might get featured in the inventory zone. But flintlocks to those who are not as savvy about pirates, they are these like single fire pistols that use a lot of like gunpowder. Once you fire it, it's not technically unusable, but it takes a while to reload. So oftentimes the captains of pirate crews would have like multiple flintlock pistols to, fire off a few rounds at a time and then reload it after the fight is over. I wanted to focus on what a pirate does on a day-to-day basis. They basically plunder ships of civilians or unarmed merchant ships by overwhelming them with like brute force, intimidation, and dirty fight tactics. So that's what I'll be showcasing in my designs.
Hell yeah.
To start off, I will talk about probably the most powerful card that I designed so far, called Raise the Red Flag. Actually, I'm going to take a step back. You need some context. So basically, when a pirate ship approaches a merchant ship, it's going to do one of two things. It's either going to raise the black flag, which means let us come and rob you peacefully and you get to live. That's called we'll give you quarter. It's kind of like, how you pass a car or you're in a parking lot and you flash your lights to let them to yield, basically to let them go forward. That's kind of like what the raise the black flag is. Like, give me your shit and you won't get killed.
Oh, that's really nice of them.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't know this about us pirates, but we are incredibly honor bound. I mean,
Yes.
we have a very strong personal code that we hold ourselves to.
Exactly. And if you go against it, if you decide I'm going to take my chances against you guys, we raise the red flag. So we throw off warning shots. Then we kind of go in and kill everybody and take our stuff or take prisoners, whatever. No holds barred. So you kind of like had your chance and now you're going to reap the benefits.
No quarter, so to speak.
Yes, no quarter.
Wow, come for the Flesh and Blood custom card design, stay for the history lesson. I love it.
Yep, I learned a lot while I was coming up with these designs. So now we'll go over to Raise the Red Flag, which is a pirate non-attack action card, Flag Aura. So there's a new card type that I'm introducing called Flags. It's a 0 cost, 3 block, red pitch, majestic. And the first line of text says, you create a Centauri Sellsword. So I'm revisiting allies and Centauri Sellswords specifically. And for those of you who don't know, Centauri Sellsword is a ally that says you pay 1 resource to attack. You can only do so if you've swung with a sword prior to this attack. And it's a 3 power, 2 health ally.
I love how you found that existing token that slots very easily in with the design that you're trying to make. I love that.
Yeah, I felt like, Kasai uses Centauri Sellswords in a very different way. And I wanted to encapsulate how pirates will use them without the restriction of like creating gold, then create the sellswords. Then this is like the meat and potatoes of the card. At the end of your turn, for each Centauri Sellsword that has not attacked this turn, lose 1 life, destroy 1 gold you control, and destroy 1 Centauri Sellsword you control. So these are on a use it or lose it basis. That way you can't just keep stacking Centauri Sellswords for this huge turn that will become more apparent later on as to why I've included this failsafe.
Yeah, if you're not using the sellswords, they'll say, screw you, take their gold and leave.
You have to keep plundering or you will face a mutiny.
Exactly. So then, while you control 3 or more Centauri Sellswords, your first attack each turn gets Intimidate.
Ooh, that is so cool.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, the whole strategy of pirates is to overwhelm and intimidate your enemies into submission so that you don't have to fight at all.
Yep. We don't want to be putting people's lives on the line.
They're just trying to make money in this crazy world. And then the last couple bits of text is if you raise another flag, you destroy this aura, and it has go again. So it's kind of like an anthem effect where you start off by creating a Centauri Sellsword token. You maybe attack with a weapon with go again, and if you have 3 Sellswords by that point, your weapon attack will have Intimidate, or maybe an attack action card will have Intimidate. It implies a lot of what your game plan would look like, but still lets you just at the very least use your weapon, use the Sellsword, and get benefit off of this card without introducing a lot of like the commons and rares of pirates. On the flip side of this flag, I also have Raise the Black Flag, which is a pirate non-attack action, flag aura, same as before, 0 cost, but this time 3 block. It's also majestic. And it reads, at the start of your turn, each of your opponents vote either quarter or quarrel You create a gold token for each person that voted quarter. So this could also be used in UPF. If there is even one quarrel vote, you search your library for a raise a red flag, put it onto the battlefield, and create 3 Centauri Sellsword tokens.
Ooh.
I love how it keeps checking at the start of your turn, so you can have your black flag up for a long time and just slowly create gold every turn. Love it.
Yep, and it creates a lot of interaction without like any blocking or defending or attacking or anything like that. So it creates an interesting mini game for both players when you're playing against the pirate. And then like the first flag, if you raise another flag, destroy this aura. So someone votes quarrel, you get the new flag and it destroys this one and it has go again. So you can start your turn off with it.
Now, I have a question about these 2 cards.
What's your question?
Do you have other ways, or do you intend on there being other ways of making Centauri Sellsword tokens?
Yes, I wanted the Sellsword to be the forefront of the pirate identity. And so far I haven't included any other ways to create Sellswords, but I do want there to be more ways than one to create them. Yeah.
That's interesting. Joel, you're normally Mr. Fuck Allies.
Yeah, I think the way that the sellswords and pirates in general work, I think the fact that they have the negative effect when the red flag is up, like you have to use all of them or lose them, is neat. And then the sellswords still have the ability that requires a sword swing with go again to precede it. I think it's probably the most balanced that allies have ever been. So that's why I'm okay with exploring with it with pirate. And then I imagine if there's multiple pirate heroes, some of them will be sellswords, some of them will be like more munitions based. So I think there's flexibility, but I wanted some way to create sellswords so that no matter what pirate you're playing, you still have access to this anthem effect with sellswords.
Cool.
Next up, we have another the first attack action called Mutiny. It's a pirate attack action card that costs 4. It's a red pitch, and it would be the hero specialization for whatever pirate gets first released. Mm-hmm. This attack has a star for its power level with 3 block. It gets plus X power, where X is the total amount of gold tokens and allies on the battlefield. It's also an anthem effect. So it says your weapon attacks and Centauri Sellswords cost 1 less to activate this combat chain.
Ooh.
So basically, you throw either 2 cards to play it or a card plus tunic resource, and you get a fat attack to lead off your attack combat chain, and then you basically come in with a flurry of sellswords and weapon attacks. It's kind of like I don't want to say Blood Rush Bellow, but it's kind of like a Blood Rush Bellow.
It's definitely a game ender.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean,
this is where you're going to be building towards.
I mean, just thinking about even like assuming that I have nothing at the start of the turn and I play raise the black flag and the opponent says, okay, sure, quarrel. You get raise the red flag, you get 3 Centauri Sellswords, and then you take whatever they throw at you. They better hope they have disruption because you then throw mutiny, giving you at least, I mean, it's only 3 attack, right? Because you would only have the 3 allies. You wouldn't have any gold tokens at this point. Right. No setup. So this is a 4 for 3. And then you get to attack with your weapon, which we haven't seen yet, and your sellswords for free. So that's 9 free damage. And on this first 3, you also intimidate.
Pretty good.
Yeah, so the mutiny would have intimidate, and then you have the sellswords, which no one hits, obviously, and then you still have your weapon, which I'll be explaining later. You're kind of spending all of your cards, all of your powerful cards in one turn, so it reduces the power level of the pirate as the game goes longer. So if you're able to survive this, which if it's early on in the game, you probably will, there's 1 less of each of these cards, so the power level of these cards could get stronger, or if they don't line up the right way, they could just be bust. So you have that 1 turn, which if you're a crew of pirates, you don't want a fight to go long, especially not with like an army or with a more organized enemy, because the longer the fight goes on, you don't have the same training, you don't have the same armor, you don't have the same conditioning. So you'll probably lose fights that are drawn out or where you're outgunned. So that's kind of what I wanted to exemplify with all of these 3 cards.
Mm-hmm.
Then, moving on to the equipment that I came up with the Sun-Kissed Greatcoat, which is the legendary pirate equipment for your chest slot. It's a 0 block with Blade Break, and the first line of text says, whenever you intimidate a hero, create a might and a gold token.
Ooh.
So there's a bit more benefit with the red flag. If you're able to consistently keep your Centauri Sellsword swinging, you have enough resources to pay for your sword attack, then you get a little bit more resources to work with, like the might token and the gold token, especially to help you draw cards and extend your turn a little bit.
Yeah, you can cash in that gold to essentially draw a card and net a resource if you draw another blue. Mm-hmm. And that can help you get that extra Centauri sword swing in.
Exactly. So there's a lot of momentum you get by having these sellswords on board, much like you would as a pirate captain with all of your crewmates at your disposal. Then, this will make more sense once I get into the weapon, but you have a once per turn instant for 3 resources. You can destroy a flag you control. So if for whatever reason you don't want to keep the red flag or the black flag up, you can call an order as the pirate captain and take down the flag for 3 resources. And I've added, when this defends, destroy all gold, all Centauri Sellsword tokens you control, and gain 1 defense for each card destroyed this way. So basically, this is like, in the middle of a mutiny, you're defending with what makes you the pirate captain, which would be your coat. Mm-hmm. You lose all the resources that you built up, but you cash it in for that defense, and you're kind of like, you're no longer the captain. And you have no say over what flag stays up, and you don't get the intimidation effect because you're not the captain. Mm-hmm. So it's very much like you are cashing this in when you have the momentum, and once you use it, it's gone. Like you lose a lot of what your kit offers.
Like a last resort.
Yeah, exactly. Then the last card that I designed is the weapon. It's the Heavy Cutlass, which is a one-handed sword. It's got 2 power, and it's legendary. Not rarity-wise, but you can only equip one of these. And it's a once per turn action for 2 resources. You can attack with Go Again. And it says it has a static ability of, if your flag is red, it has +1 power. So while you have your flag up, it'll be 3 for 2, Go Again. But if your flag is black, you cannot attack at all.
It's 2 resources for a 3 power attack.
If your flag's red.
Exactly. Thank you, Captain Hornswoggle. Mm-hmm. And so this is going back to the fact that the black flag is kind of giving your opponent the chance to, or giving anybody the chance to surrender peacefully, give me your stuff, and you get to live. Under that same ceasefire, if the flag is black, I cannot use my weapon. So I have to either change the flag, or by using my chest piece, or playing the raise a red flag. But no matter what, if the flag is black, I can't use it. And that's also why I created I added the line of being able to destroy the flag that you control. Mm-hmm. Because if it's late game and you can't change a flag for some reason and it's stuck on black flag, then you kind of lock yourself out of using your weapon. So I wanted there to be a way where you can destroy the flag so that you can still use your weapon with no flag, or wait for the right flag to come. So there's a lot of synergy baked in with these 5 cards. That's like the main staples for what a pirate would want to play with.
Do you make another sellsword when the red flag comes in?
Not off of the black flag, because it's only on cast you make the 1. Exactly. But if you tutor it using the black flag, you get 3.
Interesting.
Yep. Exactly. So it's not like you can get 4.
Yeah.
I mean, not that 4 is that much stronger than 3, but
it's a lot stronger
than 3. Especially when they cost 1 less sometimes.
Yeah.
Or how if you... Yeah. I like the mini game that you've created here about building your game plan around these flags, having really big explosive turns, and amassing a lot of wealth in order to cash it in at a later time in order to push over and win the game.
So incredibly dripping with flavor.
Well, thank you for sharing your design, Joel.
Thank you for letting me do so. I think now we're going to go into the inventory slot, right? Fuzzy, do you want to tell the viewers what that is?
Yeah, basically, all three of us have shared our major themes for the class. We're going to try to bring it all together after a brief break. It won't be a big break for you listeners. I'm going to press this button and we're going to come back right now. Okay, we're back. What a blink of an eye was for you was about a half hour, 45 minutes of discussion for us.
Yar, that be true.
Listeners, we have 3 card designs that we whipped up fresh, hot out of the oven for you. And when I say hot out of the oven, it's the middle of summer. We're recording in my garage. We are sweating.
Yar, I've lost too much water.
Except for Joel, who's in the comfort of whatever house he's in.
He probably has AC, the rat
Oh,
bastard.
yeah. I get the AC blowing, the fans going. I'm chilling. Bro.
So, Joel, since you're chilling, do you want to talk about our first card?
I'd love to. So, basically, with the inventory zone, we wanted to find cohesive cards that each of our hero designs could use. And the first one we came up with was payoffs for ruby tokens. So, if I'm able to use Fuzzy's head equipment, then I want to be able to use rubies in some fashion. So we came up with Hire Underlings, a swashbuckler / pirate action. It's going to cost 5 resources, and it's rare locked, right, guys?
Yeah, it's a majestic, so it's only coming in red.
A swashbuckler / pirate action card that costs 5 resources, and it's red at majestic rarity. It's got very few text. It says you may destroy a ruby you control rather than pay this card's resource cost. And then the other text is you create 2 Centauri Sellsword tokens, and it's going to be 3 block. So basically with this card, we wanted a cash-in-esque card to get a payoff of ruby, theoretically the most precious resource that this deck can make. And we wanted a way to combine the first 2 Swashbuckler designs with Centauri Sellswords in some interesting way. And I think Captain Hornswoggle has an interesting way that this can be used with some of his combat tricks, right?
Yar, ye may notice that Hire Underlings does not have Go Again. This will greatly reduce its capability in being able to use the Centauri Sellswords. Yet, if you use my designs to gain an action point after dealing damage, you can still use your Centauri Sellswords, using the extra action point to resolve this card by sacrificing the ruby.
So if I've got a ruby, you got to block my cutlass.
Yep, otherwise you won't know if Hire Underlings is coming in quick and fast.
Do you want to talk about our next design, Captain Hornswoggle?
Yar! A very common theme that we even discussed during the episode was wagering for money tokens. Now, I took inspiration from this name from one of my personal escapades, Pillage the Priory.
What's a priory, Captain Hornswoggle?
It's a type of monastery where men and or women spend their life in religious solitude. They also tend to have lots of loot.
So, wait, like nuns?
Yee.
You've pillaged a nunnery?
Yar.
I might need to rethink this friendship of ours.
Don't worry, they were the bad kind of nuns.
Oh, okay, got it. The bad kind.
I hate the bad kind of nuns.
Pillage the Priory is a 1-cost rainbow common. It's a 5 attack card with 2 block that says when this attacks a hero, you may wager a silver token with them.
What am I going to do with a silver token? Who knows? Might as well let you have it. Don't block my wager card. just give me the silver token. What are you going to do with the silver?
Very clearly, there's a lot to do with money tokens in these various designs. But by having it be a 1-cost that attacks for 5, we help distinguish it from the wager cards that appeared in Heavy Hitters, which were all 3 for 7s that also gave us aura tokens that sat on the field and broke at start of turn. Now they are the money tokens that will stick around for a while, and we need to find other synergies to get use out of them.
So this one's a 1 for 5 that blocks for 2, going with those other precedents set by the Heavy Hitters wagers.
Yar. Fuzzy, what was the 3rd design we discussed?
All 3 of our slices seem to really like the idea of drawing cards in the middle of the turn. So we wanted to have some really cool payoff for drawing cards on your turn, and we came up with Rambunctious Revelry. You know, when your party's going so hard, you just get into trouble. It's a Swashbuckler attack action that costs 4 by default. Or pirate. It costs 4 by default. It's a rare that comes in all 3 colors. The red will attack for 6, blocks for 3, and this card costs 1 resource less for every card you've drawn this turn. If you can draw 4 cards in this turn, it would cost 0, being a 0 for 6 attack.
This really encourages players to spend the resource tokens that they have sitting on the field and make sure that you dig and dig and dig so that you get a nice big chain ender of a 0 for 6.
And dig?
And dig.
I also like this card too because it makes Art of War a much more interesting card for basically all the pirates. Because there's, some generics that are just really powerful that you want to be able to include in some of the new heroes that come out. It also combos really well with my pirate design because the way that I have the sellsword creation so far, it doesn't hinge off of creating gold tokens. So when I do create gold tokens, I don't really have a payoff for that specifically. So this would be a good way to just draw cards off the gold tokens that I create by my Raising the Black Flag card, and then cashing in later for maybe a reduced cost card or free card for 6.
And the extra resources you gain from breaking all of these gold tokens would allow you to gain the resources to swing and keep your Centauri sellswords.
Exactly. So I think it blends really nicely with all 3 designs.
I'm really happy with the designs we came up with.
Yar. Now, there is a bit of a discrepancy here. You may have noticed I have not referred to any of these cards as being pirate cards, and Joel has made very sure that they are Swashbuckler and or pirate cards. And I think that there is a very big distinction in the 2 ways that we have viewed this class.
Yeah, Captain Hornswoggle, your designs and Joel's designs seemed very different from each other's.
Yes, I think that's also just the case with allies. Allies have a tendency to be very, very narrow and focus on the ally design, lest it become overbearing to the overall hero and game. So I think anytime allies are sort of discussed or considered in a class, they tend to take up a lot of the design space, which isn't necessarily a bad idea, and we have seen it incorporated well with Kasai.
I agree, Captain Hornswoggle. I was hesitant at first at exploring like mercenaries or sellswords in general, so I wanted there to be a way to create them, but not in an overwhelming way, and while you're making use of them, there's a way that you can just straight up lose them if you don't have enough resources to swing with all this entire sellswords that you've created so far. Mm-hmm. I think if I were to continue with this design, I think I would maybe incorporate 1 or 2 more ways of creating sellswords, and then I would cut it off strictly because I don't want this to be a board state class. I want the flavor of my crew to enhance what I'm doing as an individual pirate. And maybe it gets different with subsequent pirate designs, or it just stays specifically siloed with this pirate that I designed.
Well, I really enjoyed listening to both your designs. I love how Joel's design feels like the commander of a pirate army, and Captain Hornswoggle's designs feel like a one-on-one combat specialist with crazy little tricks and flourishes. And I love the diversity there with what we came up with. I would just be really excited if LSS ever came up with a Swashbuckler or a pirate class in the future. Don't you guys think?
Yar.
Oh, yeah.
Don't worry, I'll be riding my way to the LSS studio and holding them at cannon point.
Oh, Captain Hornswoggle, maybe that's not the best way to see the cards that we want to see in the game.
No. I'm going to get me crew together, and we're going to ambush James White in Osaka.
Oh, dear.
Jesus Christ.
Well, Joel, Captain Hornswoggle, thank you so much for potting with me. I hope you, the listener, really enjoyed this episode. Maybe we can have Captain Hornswoggle on as a guest more often if you guys really liked his content.
Yar, thank you both for having me here. I really enjoyed the whole process.
It was a pleasure meeting you, Captain Hornswoggle. And for you listeners, if you enjoyed any of the cards or want to hear more about the pirate class, let us know. I'm sure we'd love to expand on any of these ideas if a certain one like resonates with you at all.
Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great rest of your day.
Ahoy, mateys!
Bye.
Pitch It To Me podcast is hosted by Fuzzy Delp, Clark Moore, and Joel Recinos. Our executive producer is Talon Stradley. Music by Dillon Hulse. Logo by Han V. And sound mixing by Christopher Moore. Last but not least, we'd like to thank you, the listener. Thank you for tuning in. Please give us a follow on your favorite social media platform at Pitch It To Me podcast.
Captain Hogglesworth.
Hogswoggle.
Hornswoggle.
Hornswoggle.
Jesus.
Don't even remember me own fucking name.